What you call that noise?
The XTC Podcast.
XTC-inspired.com.
What do you call that noise?
What do you call that noise?
The Arts Centre's such a lovely venue, and I said to Colin, it would be great if he did one song, just piano and vocals. It really works in there. And he said, we could try Bungalow. And as soon as he did it, it was just fantastic. It just settled the whole thing down. It's beautiful.
That is the voice of Stu Rowe, the man who inspired Colin Moulding to give such a memorable rendition of Bungalow at the TC&I gigs in Swindon back in 2018. He also worked with Colin and Terry Chambers on the final stages of the Great Aspirations EP, not to mention being one of the 3 Clubmen with Andy Partridge and Jen Olive, recording Monstrance with Andy and Barry Andrews, and Gonwards with Andy and Peter Blegvad. He is one of the few people who have worked with all members of XTC, and he is in conversation for this episode of What Do You Call That Noise, the XTC Podcast. Hello again, I am Mark Fisher, and this month we are returning for a second time to the XTC Fan Festival in Swindon in June, where I interviewed Stu Rowe about his many XTC-related collaborations, about the Swindon music scene, and in particular about Gonwards, which he rightly believes is one of those albums that unjustly falls under the radar too often. That's coming up in just a minute. First, let's listen to the music you have been making that shows the influence of XTC in some way. And this time I couldn't resist sharing 2 songs, one by Callum Wilson of the Hemp Queens and one by Nick Lacey, who goes by various names, including Model Worker. And both of them do such a good job at capturing the sound of white music era XTC. So I just had to put them both together. See if you think I'm right. First, here's Callum to introduce Laser Eyes.
What do you call that noise?
Hi, I'm Callum Wilson of the Hemp Queens. We're from Newcastle upon Tyne in the UK, and our music's on Bandcamp and Spotify. It's more a project than a band, with me writing and producing all the songs. If asked what genre we are, I tend to say indie pop, but we do lots of different stuff. We have better produced songs than this, but here's a track from our particularly goofy and lo-fi first EP, 7 Love Songs. It's a pastiche of white music era XTC called Laser Eyes. Hope you enjoy.
I got my laser eyes on you. You can get my infrared, now I'm feeling blue. Your skin's not where it should be. Oh no, having fun. I turned you into a skeleton. Oh, I got my laser eyes on you. I got my laser eyes on you. You can get my infrared, now I'm feeling blue. Your skin's not where it should be. Oh no, I'm not having fun. I turned you into a skeleton. Oh, I got my laser eyes on you.
What do you call that noise?
Hello, my name's Nick Lacey. My track is called Lit Up Night. It's a direct tribute to the band during their 3D EP and white music period. What's it about? Well, some years ago on a Saturday night we had a load of blue sheet lightning over much of England. The song is about me cycling home from Walthamstow in London through that impressive sight. People on here with home recording gear may be interested to know it was made on a pretty rudimentary setup, an old Boss 12-track recorder, vocals on a Shure 58 mic, and drum and keyboard sounds from a Roland Juno D.
Mine's a metal beast.
out lately. Lit up night, heaven's bright, and all bars for gripping sight. Window seat for the lit up night. Have they seen the light in Cincinnati, Milan or Warsaw? Illuminated roads, crackling radios are. Lit up night, heaven's bright, and all bars for gripping sight. Window seat for the lit up
What do you call that noise?
Thanks very much, Callum Wilson and Nick Lacey, for those spot-on tributes. I'll include links to their music pages in the podcast blurb. If you've got an XTC-inspired song, do let me know. Just email me at mark@xtclimelight.com. It was good to say hello to several supporters of the podcast at the Fan Festival. Their contributions on Patreon make it possible for me to keep it all going. Many thanks to them and the other good people who have signed up. If you've been enjoying the podcast, it'd be great if you'd consider joining them. All you have to do is go to patreon.com/Mark Fisher and decide on your level of support. There are 3 levels, and if you opt to be a knight in shining armour, I'll read out your name at the end of each episode. Before the podcast, there was a book. What Do You Call That Noise? An XTC Discovery book, which offers a musician's eye view of the band. You can buy it at xtclimelight.com, where you'll also find details of all of these podcasts. Time now to go back to the Mecca in Swindon in June 2025, where I took to the stage with the multi-talented Stu Rowe, who is a mixer, producer, guitarist, bassist and keyboard player who has worked with Andy Partridge on Monstrance, Gonwards and the Three Clubmen, with Colin Moulding and Terry Chambers on the Great Aspirations EP and the TC&I live gigs, with Barry Andrews on 4 Shriekback albums, Jen Olive on the breaks, and pretty much any Swindon musician you can name. Here it comes.
What do you call that noise?
Now I have, to my right, this is Mark Fisher. You may know him, of course, from the excellent, excellent XTC podcast, What Do You Call That Noise? And here we have Stu Rowe, a multi-talent, much stories to tell, I believe, and of course, one of the 3 Clubmen. So, will you please give a round of applause to Mark Fisher and Stu Rowe?
Is this about right?
Thank you, everybody. Do you want to check your microphone? Is that working for you?
1, 2, yes.
1, 2, we're here. We're in business. Good to talk to a producer who's got a microphone working. That would be very embarrassing if we weren't doing that. Thank you very much for Stu Rowe joining us. Stu is the sort of person that you might not realize how much you know about. He has worked with every single member of XTC. There aren't very many people who can say that, and I include Barry Andrews, Dave Gregory, Andy Partridge, Colin Moulding, and Terry Chambers in that. I think the story, you might want to fill in the story, but I think the story goes back to about 2006 when you worked on Monstrance with Barry Andrews and Andy Partridge, and it includes being on the sound desk for the TC&I gigs, producing the Great Aspirations single for Colin and Terry. It also includes working with Peter Blegvad, and we'll be talking about that quite a lot. And of course, the fantastic 3 Clubmen EP with Andy Partridge and the very marvelous Jen Olive, and he also produced Jen Olive's second LP.
Yeah.
So there's nothing he hasn't done. He's also a musician and a teacher.
and a Swindon resident. And if you are a musician and you are in Swindon, one way or another, Stu Rowe will be somebody that you come across. So great for you to join us.
Thank you,
Stu.
Mark.
Have I missed out anything significant in that wrap-up?
That's
Oh,
right.
Lighter Thief as well. I didn't mention
Yes.
Lighter Thief. Yeah. And just off stage, we were talking about juxtaposition. So let's start talking about juxtaposition. We were talking about juxtaposition in the context of music that we like, that we think has got a sense of humor, and how you define that humor, because we're not necessarily talking about jokes. And Stu very wisely said it was about juxtaposition. It was about unexpected elements being put together. And I think maybe that's true of all, or certainly a lot of the stuff you do. Do you like putting things together?
Yeah, I've always been interested in all different genres and how they work. And I think it's relatively easy to put something together that's been done before, but to actually put something new. And I think the easiest way to do it is to put two things together that haven't been done before. And when I met Andy, he just could do that so well. So I think that's where we connect in that area.
We'll talk about that meeting with Andy, because apart from anything else, he and all of the other people I just mentioned are formidable musicians. How did that make you feel when you started working with formidable musicians? Did you feel like you had to raise your game? Did you feel confident?
Well, I moved to Swindon in 1980, and I had a record shop just around the corner, out the door, and I sold records. And the first time I met Andy, he came in and I tried to buy him tried to sell him a Charlie Parker record. He didn't buy it. And I'd vaguely met Barry, but when I first met them was when I set up a college course in music production. We had a studio, and Andy approached the college to say, we want to make a album, which was Monstrance. And I didn't actually engineer it, but I kind of oversaw it. But yeah, there was a sense of me in a whole other level of musical royalty when I met them.
But clearly you gained their respect because you've worked so repeatedly with all of them since then.
Yeah, I think I just got on well with them. I'd worked with a band called The Future Sound of London, who were really into technology and an advanced kind of lots of sampling. And they came from a position of quite traditional, being in studios and recording it. So we kind of had opposite skills. So it was a really interesting time to meet them.
Yeah, and also good for those musicians to get that, as in Andy Partridge, Barry Andrews, to get another influence, to bring your influence from the world of electronics and rhythms and so on to play into that mix.
Yeah, I mean, Andy's they've all got very clear ideas, but I suppose because I came from working with computers and they came from mixing desks, so I kind of had a new angle on it. So yeah, we met in a good place, I think.
Yeah. That's reminded me, maybe you could describe your studio for people, because I've been there. It's the sort of studio that you can do these days because of digital stuff. It doesn't have to be massive, and so it's intimate.
Well, it's just in my back garden. It's slightly bigger than Andy's, so I'm slightly better endowed than Andy in the studio stage. But it's just got a drum kit, speakers, different instruments. You can make anything now. It's really fantastic.
Yeah.
Don't need to go to Abbey Road.
Yeah. And the working methods of, if you think about Monstrance, if you think about the Three Clubmen EP, very organic, as I understand it, created improvisationally in some places. Is that something that comes from you? Is that something that you feel comfortable with? Is it just the way that group of people, those groups of people, felt comfortable with?
Well, I'd already done a lot of that before I moved to Swindon with improvisations, and then I worked. The problem with improvisations is they can be really boring because they go on. So I started this idea of chopping up improvisations. So Monstrance was this great big, long, sprawling weirdness. And so me and Andy started working together about them. He'd come down every Friday and we'd just record so many different things and then just chop them up, rearrange it, and then try and turn them into songs afterwards. So Andy would then write lyrics on the top, and then Jen Olive came into the equation, and then I started working with Barry as well. So it all kind of stemmed from 2005, 2006 when I met them.
Yeah, and again, a new way for them to be working as well.
Yeah, I suppose so. I mean, traditionally, as far as I know, XTC would they'd write the songs, rehearse them, go in the studio and record them. This is more like with Gonwards, starting from scratch, just with an idea, a vague idea in the studio, which you can do if it's cheap. I'm really cheap, really cheap.
And up for that sort of creative adventure, and let's see where we end up with this.
Well, you're not restricted by the musicians. You can invent different characters to play different things. You can, it's more wide open. You're not restricted by, we got these 4 people, this is how we play. You can just go anywhere. And Gonwards, I think, is like that.
And we'll talk about Gonwards in a second. I'm thinking about egos. You're working with people. Barry Andrews, of all the people I've mentioned, Barry Andrews, Andy Partridge, Jen Olive, all of whom are very distinct personalities, very high-achieving, confident sort of people. Have you got a good bedside manner to marshal all of these ideas?
I suppose it's easier to work with them individually. Yeah, it's very easy to work with any of them individually, I think. I think as soon as you get 3 people or 4, and that's not just it's for any bands. I think just working with 2 people, you really get your head into something. I think that's better.
Yeah. It sounds like a chemical experiment, doesn't it? Like alchemy. How many you've got 2 good elements put together, but then you add the 3rd and it explodes.
Well, with the free Clubmen stuff, say me and Andy will start something, then we'll send it to Jen, who's in America. She'll add some stuff. She'll send it back. I'll add some stuff. I'll send it to Andy. He'll come to the studio and add some stuff. And it took 13 years, the first. It takes a bloody long time. But you get something that it's not coming out of anyone's head. It's just this thing that's kind of come up.
And you often hear, even in more conventionally written singer-songwriting sort of songs, that people say that, and they say this about all sorts of art forms, that you don't finish a song, you abandon it. And I imagine that's the case even more here. You can't ever be fully satisfied because you know of all the millions of options that you've gone through before.
I think it's when you can't bear to listen to it anymore. It's just done, just really, really done with it.
Yeah. We did say Stu was very keen that we should focus on Gonwards, which is an album that I don't know how well you should know, that you do know, but you should know it. And if you don't know it, at the Burning Shed stall out there, they've got 2 versions of it. There's one which is the straight CD, and then there's the rather very, very gorgeous box set, which is designed by Andrew Swainson and includes a fantastic Lotteria game, board game, which is based on, a sort of Mexican version of Bingo. And should you want to play, I did actually try and play it with my daughter just a couple of weeks ago when we were on holiday. The game didn't last very long, but it does look beautiful. And Gonwards is a collaboration between Andy Partridge, Stu, and Peter Blegvad. I guess, well, you can tell me Peter Blegvad feels like the most dynamic force in the collection, but you can tell me whether I'm wrong in that or the sort of leading light. But to give you an idea of the weird and wonderful experience of listening to it, this is what Peter Blegvad said about Gonwards. He said that he described it as Russian constructivist Mexican folk is in there, along with spaghetti western, calypso, Raymond Scott, schmaltz, soul, umpar band, beatnik jazz, beefheart, Beatles, Ligeti, etc., as if there is an etc. that could be summed up by that. And there was also a blog, which sadly isn't online anymore, but I made a note of it at the time when it came out, where Andy Partridge and Peter Blegvad talked about the album, and the influences included Jack Kerouac, Can, Danny Kaye, Bob Dylan, Dizzy Gillespie, the Beatles, Chris Christopherson, and Prince Far Eye. So the sense of variety and wonderment beneath the sometimes tracks which are quite spoken wordy, other are sort of more obviously musical, is all in there. But we started off, Stu, talking about juxtaposition. If what I've read out is not juxtaposition, I'm not too sure what is. So describe the process of how that album came to be.
Me and Andy have been doing these different things. We'd actually released some stuff under the name Lighter Thief, which was me and Andy messing about, really. And then he said to me, would I like to get involved with an album with his friend Peter? So he's known Peter since he did an album in the 80s, and I know Andy really rates Peter as a lyricist. He's a fantastic lyricist. So I think Andy liked the idea of making an album with Peter's lyrics and lines at the front, but he would kind of construct the musical pictures behind it. So I suppose my job was just kind of help them put it together. So Andy would say things like, this needs to sound like it's in a Russian factory in 1910. And my job was try and make this backdrop of a Russian factory. Or no, now we're in Cuba and the guitarist is sliding on his knees. So it's very visual. So yes, and Peter, we'd pick Peter up every Friday morning for about 2 years. I'll pick Andy up at 11. We'd go and get sandwiches. We'd go and get Pete from the station. We'd go to my studio for Friday. We'd just mess about all day, laugh all day. Then Pete would go back. Well, we'd go to the pub around the corner. And it took 2 years, but it's really good fun. It's really, I was listening to it this morning, and it's just, there's so much in there. And it is Andy's really arranging head on, how the different layers he's put in. Yeah, I'm really proud of it, actually.
Yeah, and I suppose that's the reason I'm just saying, you might disagree with me, but I just said that Peter Blegvad was the lead artist, and I suppose I think that because it's Peter Blegvad's voice you hear, but also Andy is restrained in the sense that I think you hear him on the backing vocal occasionally, but he's not, he's not an obviously in the foreground sort of.
No, he didn't want to be at the front, but that's a lot of Andy's musical ideas and sounds and vision is in there, apart from the main vocal.
Yeah,
there's a lot of Andy in it.
And Peter Blegvad, as a musician, is an interesting character because I think that he and Andy did the Naked Shakespeare album together was it 1983, something like that, and and I remember, I think Colin played on it, and the way Andy told the story at the time was that Peter Blegvad showed up and said, "Oh, do you know a bass player?" And Andy would just say, "Oh yeah, I know this guy who might be able to help." But somebody who is very willing to collaborate, somebody who has certain musical talents, but doesn't particularly put himself forward as a musician, and often he puts himself forward as a cartoonist and a lyricist and a spoken word poet. So he's all of these other things, isn't he, Peter Blegvad?
Yeah, he is a musician and he writes songs, but in quite a traditional way with acoustic guitar. There's a song called Daughter, which is beautiful. But what for this, we actually got him to read his poetry. We treated it as a poet, so he wasn't kind of singing to the tracks. He was just saying the poetry, and then we were placing his vocals almost as samples on a lot of tracks, like Gem to Gem. It's just, we moved him around to fit the track because he had his own rhythm in the words, and the words were so good. So.
And how did that work on a technical level? What came first, the music or the words? Did you record him and then?
Well, there's a track called Gem to Gem, and on that we'd written the music first, and then he'd written some lyrics for it. But when he tried to say the lyrics on top of the music, it just wasn't working. So we basically just turned the music off and just got him to say his poetry, and then brought the music back, and it just fitted. 99% of it was perfect because it had its own rhythm. And I suppose that's real juxtaposition. You've got two things that weren't designed to go together, but when they do, that's perfect.
Is it a complicated game where Andy played the guitar solo without headphones on?
It's the same idea.
Yeah.
You get something that because you're not reacting, you're just doing the thing. I think you get something different.
That is really interesting, but it's also the way you described it. Andy had that piece of music before Peter Blegvad had come up with the music with the words.
Yes, we started that on the 1st of January. We started it on 01/01/10 first, and it was freezing cold. It was snow, and he said he wanted to sound like winter in Swindon. That's what it is. That's how it starts. He's doing this strange choir over this kind of dub funk thing. Yeah.
And how much then? So then that was Peter Blegvad. You're effectively challenging what I said, that this was led by Peter Blegvad. That was an example of Andy leading the artistic enterprise and Peter responding to it.
I suppose Andy had a lot of the musical sketches. Then Peter would come down with his books of lyrics and he'd have an idea. The first track is Peter's idea of making a blues out, deconstructing words. That was Peter's side. I think they came from different. They all came from different places. Yeah.
But and how are the two of them together as personalities?
Oh, they're very funny. They've been friends since the 80s, so it's very funny. Very, very funny. Yeah. We're laughing all the way through. 2 years of laughter. It's great.
And as you described it, you say 2 years. It was like just a Friday.
Yeah, nearly every Friday. Me and Andy did sort of every Friday for about 10 years, I think, roughly.
And is that it's the opposite of the immediacy of going into a recording studio and laying down your album. I was just listening to the first Beatles album was done in a day, wasn't it? And it's the opposite of that.
Yeah,
is it good or bad to spend that long time?
It's neither. It's just a different way of doing it. They take ages doing it this way, but they kind of write themselves over a period of time. You just keep chipping away at them, and it's less pressure. They're done when they're done.
And lyrically, it does feel like a lot of it feels like a spoken word thing, and it's rewarding in the sense that you can keep on going back and trying to figure out what this song is about. But there is a kind of thematic thing, I think, going on, which I'm sure Peter Blegvad could explain better.
He'd be able to explain it far better than me. Some of them, I still have no idea what they're about, but they just sound really great. Yeah. He's just got great way with words. They just sound fantastic.
And I suspect you've slightly underplayed your own contribution to this record in the sense that you described having to try and come up with these landscapes, but you're playing on this, you're making a contribution. Should it really have been the three of you credited to it, or where did you fit in
I
that?
think at the time it was like putting my name on it would not have added to the sales whatsoever. So I'm quite happy to be at the back. And I also, because I've been in Swindon for 35 years, I've managed to find a real great selection of interesting Swindon musicians. So there's a guy called Frank Abrams, who sadly died a couple of years ago, who's playing flutes, saxophone. There's a girl called Natasha Griffiths who came and sang it. So I kind of used it like I got a house band of strange Swindon people who'll come around and play on the stuff.
Yeah. Can you talk about Swindon? Because many people, perhaps 90% of people are here from out of town, often from out of the country, and trying to get their head around what this place is. A small town, as to quote a song, outside London, slightly in the shadow of bigger places. Is it? And we've just been talking about how few people even in Swindon know of XTC. So it feels like everything's a little bit underground, but you're part of a whole scene. I mean, what is the scene like?
It's very underground. Very, very few bands seem to be able to get it together. There are some, but I mean, XTC stand head and shoulders above anyone else who's come out of here. But it's great. It's very musical. But I think because there's no university, at 18 you get this drain talent. You go to Bath or Bristol or London or Brighton. So the only people who stay in Swindon, XTC stayed in Swindon. So. And I've worked with so many bands in Swindon, hundreds, thousands of different musicians. And it just seems it's so odd that somehow in the early 70s, like Andy met with someone like Colin and Dave and Barry and Terry, and they all kind of got together at the same time. It seems an amazing coincidence. They're all really good and all very different. But somehow it works. Because normally, I've met so many great musicians in Swindon who've not been able to find the right band. So I think that's what makes it very unusual. But Swindon's great. I love it. I've been here 35 years.
And I could include you in that, because if you hadn't been there with your studio, then all of the stuff that we're currently talking about that you've worked on, it wouldn't have been very convenient for it to happen.
No, I feel myself fortunate. I just worked with everyone. Since I came to Swindon, anyone who wanted to do music I met, I just made a track with. So I suppose there was an inevitability I would meet Andy and Barry, and then Colin and Terry.
Yeah.
And Jen.
Yeah. You've just said Colin and Terry, and I've had a flashback to being in the Arts Centre. I came down for a week to see the TC&I gigs. You were there, beavering away on the desk. What are your memories of that time?
Well, I have to point out a friend of mine at the back, Paul Bully. He did the sound at the TC&I gigs, and he actually, Yeah, round of applause. Good. It's fantastic. I had my hands on the mixing desk, so you had to tell me to take my hands off, didn't you? Yeah. But we'd rehearsed that for. It's been in there 3 days, have we? Trying to get this, because it was such a big thing. We knew so many people were coming. We're working so hard to get it to sound right. Half an hour before the first... I don't know who was there the first night, if anyone was there, but Bully came to see me completely white-faced and said the whole PA had gone down, they'd lost all the sound. So we had to sound check it again with the whole audience coming up the stairs. So it was slightly stressful, but that was lovely to be involved with that.
And you can only have been aware of the level of anticipation and the unusualness of Terry Chambers being back in Swindon, let alone anywhere near Colin Moulding, and B, the fact that Colin hadn't been on stage, as far as I can remember, since 1982. Grown people were seen to cry when Colin played Bungalow. That level of anticipation, being in the room with these songs that people had loved over the decades, was palpable, wasn't it?
Well, Bungalow, which I think was the highlight, because I played the Art Centre, such a lovely venue, and I said to Colin, it would be great if you did one song, just piano and vocals. It really works in there. And he said, we could try Bungalow. And as soon as he did it, it was just fantastic. It just settled the whole thing down. It's beautiful. Beautiful.
I think Steve Warren just got a credit for telling Colin to write songs. I think Stu should get a round of applause for suggesting that.
Yeah. I didn't write that. Yeah.
It's the idea that counts. And then the Great Aspirations EP as well, you were producing that, is that right?
Colin and Terry recorded it all, and then they brought it to me to help finish it. So mixing, just helping them just get it over the line. Because it's a hard thing you need someone who's not involved, which I kind of offer myself as just to finish it. That sort
of extra pair of ears.
Yes.
Yeah. But again, a huge privilege to be able to work on that.
Absolutely. Great. Scatter Me, I think, is a really great song.
Yeah, I think Scatter Me is Colin says that it's his favourite song.
As soon as I heard it, I thought, this is really good, really good.
Yeah. So you don't play on that, do you?
No. I think I got my brother to play a bit of piano on it, a bit of keyboards on part of it. But no, I'm not playing. I'll just mix in on that. I do different things.
And how do you rate Colin's producing skills, because he was giving you that material?
I think the recording aspect of it, it's really, really good. But remember, they came from a time when if they'd done a recording, they'd have had people to do it. They'd have had an engineer and a recording engineer and a mixing engineer and a mastering engineer and a producer. So to be in a situation when you've got to do the whole lot yourself, it's quite daunting. But because they know what it should sound like in their head, it's just a matter of just working with them, asking them what they're trying to get it to sound like.
And again, with Terry Chambers as included in this question, Terry and Colin, good to work with?
Very good. Same again. Very, very funny. When they had the tracks already, I was just kind of finishing it, and the gigs were fantastic. I went to see a few rehearsals, but I think I helped put the band together. That I knew Steve, Tillin, and Gary, so they asked what musicians I could recommend. So I kind of got involved with that, but I wasn't really involved. Just kind of.
And it was interesting because I did see, was it 4 or 5 consecutive nights, and it was interesting to see how it didn't change radically, but they learnt certain things and tweaked it, and
there was illnesses.
There was
illnesses as well. I think it was a bit by the end. It was hanging by a thread.
It's a danger of...
They're not 25 anymore.
Yeah, and hot, sweaty rooms and people breathing on each other. Yeah. And Shriekback, there will be lots of Shriekback fans in the audience. You've worked on how many albums with Shriekback?
4 or 5, I can't remember. From Glory Bumps onwards.
Yeah.
Till about 2016. So Life in the Loading Bay, Real Fish, yeah.
And a different working method again, I presume.
Yeah. So Glory Bumps, I was more involved as production, and then Barry started producing the tracks more himself, and he asked me to mix and master I was mastering those as well. So same again, that thing of helping people finish stuff when you're not actually emotionally involved and just trying to make sure it's done. Yeah.
So I'm trying to get the chronology right, did you work with Barry before you'd worked with Andy, or was that Andy the first thing?
Well, we did Monstrance.
Through Monstrance.
We met on the set of Monstrance before it all went terribly wrong. And then after Monstrance was finished, I kind of started work with both of them. I was working on Glory Bumps with Barry, and me and Andy just started hanging out and experimenting.
And I sort of think of Barry, I mean, maybe it was inevitable that Barry would have to leave the band because he and Andy are similarly creative, but differently creative. You see what I mean? They're equally creative people, but needing to go in their own directions. And we were just talking about Peter Blegvad, another very creative person, visual as well as musical, and in the same way that Andy is. So again, it's the same question. How was Barry to work with?
Barry was very easy to work with on the Shriekback stuff because he knows exactly what he wants. Absolutely. He's very clear-minded, and he knows what it needs to sound like. We've got references, and he knows what he wants. And he's also open to ideas. They're all very open to ideas. I think any problems come when you've got two... Andy and Barry are both only children. That's what I'll say. and
they're used to having their own way. They expect to have their own way.
Yeah. And when you've got people with people with very strong opinions, it's very difficult. That's the problem. I think that's why bands are a young man's game or a young woman's game. Because when you're young, you've got a joint energy. As you get older, you get a bit, I want to do this, I want to do that. So I think that's inevitability that bands slowly fall apart, and that's just the way it is. The way it is.
And what intrigues me about Barry is that he started off as a keyboard player, and a very, very distinctive keyboard player at that. But his work with Shriekback, it's almost like keyboards are a secondary thought. I mean, where does his music go? Because it's so rhythmically based.
So what I know from Barry, and I know Barry reasonably well, his background was classical music rather than rock and roll. He grew up self-taught in Parks and Swindon, self-taught classical pianist. So coming from a different kind of, not so bluesy or jazzy, Barry, and he's really into literature. So the lyrics are very, very important to him. The lyrics make the song. The music is kind of important, but it's in service to the lyrics, I think.
Yes, I just happened to look back at I think it was an interview in Sounds from 1979 at the point when Dave Gregory had just joined the band, and the band were being interviewed and reflecting on the departure of Barry. And at that stage, even though I imagine there might have been a bit of an animosity in the air, Andy said, "Yeah, I really liked Barry as a lyricist," and I think that was one of the things.
Yeah, there's a lot of respect between the two of them, which is where Monstrance came from. They really wanted to work together again. And Barry's got this kind of punky edge as well that fits well. And the way he plays key, it's just got that angles in there. So when it works, it's great.
Yeah. So did any of in the Shriekback stuff that you did you see any of that influence of his self-taught classical background?
Oh yeah. There's left to his own devices, Barry will play very beautiful classically formed chords, but then same again, there's this juxtaposition with these really kind of grotesque industrial sounds in there as well. So I think that's his thing. The classical kid with the kind of post-punk industrial loops.
Yeah.
Somewhere that's where, and then lyrics.
Yeah. What's your working with them for the first time? Actually, no, I won't ask that question. I'll ask the question I was just thinking of, which is working with Barry and Andy together. That was another sort of watershed moment. We were just about Great Aspirations being a watershed moment, and the TC&I gigs. Barry and Andy in the same room together for the first time after quite a long time.
I was only there for a part of that, and so those recordings were just done over 2 or 3 days, and it was just the end. It was at the College Studio, and they just pressed record. So it was Andy, Barry, and Martin Barker, and they just recorded. So there was just as hours and hours of this. There's something like 14 hours of these just So after that, I don't think I worked with Andy and Barry together till we went to the mastering at the end. It was really Andy and my friend Merv and then me mixing it and finishing it. Then Barry came and checked it over the end. So they probably didn't spend that much time together working on the mixes. That was Andy and me.
But the sense I get is that they, maybe to their own surprise, realised that they did like each other and they did get on.
Oh,
and
yeah,
they saw
yeah,
what
yeah.
was in. They saw what they saw in each other. All of those years ago.
Yeah. It's almost like I sort of described it as two. It's like you've had a girlfriend from when you were 20, and you meet up with them. You think, oh, I remember why I really like them. You're really nice. And after a few weeks, you think, I remember why we split up.
Yeah.
I think it's that. But I think there's a fondness.
Yeah. And it's almost like it can't work, but it would be great if it did work.
No, they're not going to be in a band together. XTC did their thing. What they did was fantastic, but it's like it's kind of them.
And the question I was about to ask was, what is your relationship with XTC before you fell into all of these different projects that we're talking about? Were you conscious of XTC? Were you a fan? Or
I was very conscious of XTC, and I like their music. But I wouldn't say I was like a massive fan. So when I met them, it was actually easier just to work with them on a level. I wasn't totally... I was still starstruck, a bit like that.
You went starstruck, yeah.
But I really like... I think my favourite album's Nonsuch, actually. But that's when I moved to Swindon. I think when I moved to Swindon, I started to pay more attention to the history of the place. And it was like that's what the history is.
Yeah. And tell me about the record shop that you were running. It's a fantastic opportunity to spend all day listening to music apart from anything. Were you able to effectively curate your stock in the record?
Well, it was mostly second-hand records. I moved to Swindon from London. I'd worked out that you could buy really 1970s albums in Swindon went for like 50 pence in a pound, whereas I could take them to Notting Hill and sell them for £10. So it was like... So before Swindon caught up, I was kind of got ahead of the game. But it was just selling second-hand, a lot of jazz. But what was good, everyone who came in was a real expert on what they were an expert on. So it was almost like I had an education in musical genres over 5 years. I just played chess. I played a lot of chess, played guitar, and play records that people liked. So it was great.
Yeah.
Didn't make much money. It was good.
But before we came on stage, you were talking about how you... you were talking about how your musical love has always been broad. You've always been not wanted to be drawn down one line or the other, with the exception of prog.
Yeah, I struggle with prog. But because I started out with punk when I was 14 in 1977, so that was the first thing. But then... once I started playing guitar, I wanted to learn how blues works, and then jazz and soul, and and then electronics and synths and recording. It's endlessly fascinating, and I think that's possibly what me and Andy have in common. He's a real student of recording, the process of making a record. He knows so much. You sit in a pub. And he'll be sat there and he'll go, listen to the reverb on that, and he'll be able to tell you, oh, that's a plate reverb. He's got incredible ears, which I learned so much from.
And that's interesting from your point of view that, you've got the studio, you've got the engineer credibility, but you're learning from him as you work.
Oh, yeah, he came down. I was sat next to him for 10 years going, it was great, really. Such a great, had a visiting professor.
And how do you rate Andy as a producer? Because a lot of the stuff that he's done of late, My Fail Son, Writing Career and so on, has it's got his hands all over it.
Well, so when we started working together, I think we both went from different reasons in a position we had to make our own records. So between it, we've really studied how to mix and master, and we've done a lot of analysis of how records work and compressors and EQ. So I think Andy's got such great ears. He hears stuff. I've started to understand more what he's hearing, but he's also sat at the side of people like John Leckie, so he's learned from the very best of it. He's just got that mind that takes some in. So, I think he's a really good mixer. I think Andy's more of an artist than a producer in that Andy's got a clear vision. Producer will when another act is the artist, that's a different thing. But Andy's an artist, a real artist. He knows, very clear.
Yeah, yes, and it's interesting to see the people that he's worked with, such as Peter Blegvad, that he's managed to find, both of them have managed to find a space within the...
Yes, I think that's the thing about production. You've got to be like the blank card at Scrabble. You become the thing that's not... You can't be working, say, Peter Blegvad and trying to try and get some lyrics in. So do you find the position that will make the job done?
Yeah. And again, I'm thinking about Gonwards and thinking that I've not really heard Andy talk about it very much, but there are all these, as you've described it, there are all these sort of instrumental tracks that he was working on. It makes me just wonder how many other instrumental tracks are sitting in his archive, sort of waiting to be used at some point.
There's a lot. There's hard drives full of little sketches. Yeah.
And when Andy says, "Oh, I've stopped writing songs," or "I've stopped it," Andy's idea of not writing songs is not anybody else's idea of not writing songs.
Andy's very prolific.
Yeah. Let's come forward to the fantastic, and that's another EP that you should buy if you haven't bought it. The fantastic Three Clubmen EP, which I really, really love, and I've been a fan of Jen Olive since Andy worked with her as well, and also your album that you did with her too. I know that last time I interviewed you about it, all of you said, "Oh yeah, we've got loads of stuff. We'd all like to work with it again." Is that going to happen? Is there going to be more Three Clubmen?
Well, the last one took 13 years, and
How long have we got?
Yeah, so it's going to be a while. When it's out, but there is stuff. But Jen's in America, so stuff is going back and forth, and it's kind of coming. But the last one, so enjoyable to finish. I just want to make this one. If we do another one, it's got to be really, really good. So it'll come up as it comes up. But it's got same again. It's got that sense of humour. It's just too serious. It doesn't work. It's got to be fun. It'll be fun.
And does Jen have I don't know, I've interviewed Jen. It strikes me that she probably has a sense of humour. Does she have a sense of humour?
Absolutely. Yeah. That's the thing that makes it. The three of us it's very fun.
Yeah. And talk about Jen Olive, because again, we started off talking about Gonwards, which is an album that many people don't know, even when they're sort of hardcore XTC fans. Jen Olive is somebody that I think everybody should know. She seems to me like a singular talent worthy of mention in the same breath as Björk or Kate Bush. And I'm not just saying that because they're women, but because they're people who followed their own creative route in exactly the way that they want to do it, and set up their own kind of musical world. I think she's an astonishing talent. You've worked with her a lot now. Do you agree?
Absolutely. So the first time I heard her is when me and Andy first met. Andy was looking for artists for Ape, and he put I don't know, it's like an advert or something out saying artists wanted for my record label. And Jen lives in Albuquerque in New Mexico, and someone saw this and said, "Well, look, Andy Partridge is looking for artists." So Jen sent him this CD, and every time I'd go around and see Andy, he'd play me these latest things that had been sent in, and he'd be listening to it. And then he said, "What do you think of this?" And I just couldn't make out what was going on. It was so complex, but it was something really, really interesting. So anyway, so Andy then started working, and they did the album Warm Robot. That's a a lot of Andy's arranging on there. That's a really very, very good album. They work really well together. And me and Jen and Andy kind of started experimented around that time. So that was 2008, 2009. Then I produced Jen's next album. Then we didn't do anything till COVID. Then I thought I better finish these tracks. So the Three Clubmen comes out of COVID. Time to finish them.
And that's I keep on having the conversation with people that nobody apart from us lot know who XTC are. I mean, it's even more true that nobody in the world knows who Jen Olive is, and I think that's a great shame.
Oh, yeah. Jen Olive.
How underrated do you think she is?
Jen Olive is such a fantastic musician. Her ears, her timing, the harmony, the chords that she sings. The first thing she sent me, I had a track called Up and High that me and Andy had been working on. And I started chatting to Jen, and there was a section in the middle. I sent to her, I said, "Could you do some harmonies in there?" And she sent back like 35 vocal parts. She sends layers and layers of vocals. So It's fascinating. It's just
And did you end up using all 35?
All 35,
Yeah.
all 35, yeah. They all fit together. She's got this incredible brain.
Yeah, really incredible. And it reminds me, actually, there's a few things that we're talking about. There's juxtaposition we started off talking about. We talked about a sense of humor, which is related to that. And it's also the ability, and just before we came on stage, we were talking about Madison Cunningham, and we're both big fans of Madison Cunningham, who is a big fan of XTC. And she has the same thing as well, which is the ability to have a combination of time signatures within a song, but without sounding mathematical. It also sounds human. And what Jen Olive does and what Andy Partridge does is do clever things or unexpected musical things, but make them human.
Yeah, to me it sounds very musical. Me and Jen once did a gig in a pub in Leeds. She came over on a little tour, promotion tour for Warm Robot. So we end up in this pub in Leeds, and we've been put on a country and western night. And we were the first band, and it was full of drunken people. And the only way I could describe it was like trying to stand up in a pub and explain complicated algebra problems to 2-year-olds. It was just like, people were just looking at us absolutely perplexed. So, yeah, it's complicated. But I suppose I'm used to it. It doesn't sound, but I'm used to it. Jen's trained me in different time signatures, so...
And I think on that tour you were playing bass, is that right?
Yes, and a bit of guitar.
Yeah. Was it easy to play that bass? Was it?
No, it was a lot of counting. A lot of 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3. Yeah, a lot of that going on.
Yeah, good for your brain.
Yeah, really good for your brain. Yeah.
Good mental exercise for you. Is she writing stuff on her?
Yes.
Continually in her own right?
She sends me stuff quite often. She's actually writing stuff on the piano. She writes some fantastic music on the piano, which is actually slightly, I hesitate to word use simpler, but it kind of is, not so complex, because the guitar playing is very complex, because she probably doesn't play piano so well. It's more usual and more common chords. So I think they might translate, we will see. So we've got tracks at the moment that we're not sure, are they Jen Olive tracks or are they Clubmen tracks? Kind of. But I think the Clubmen is when all three of us kind of have just add bits.
So it's possible we'll be hearing more from
Jen Olive. There will some coming from Jen Olive. Don't know what will be first.
Yeah.
But some will be first. But we'll chip away.
I'll definitely look forward to that. And when you work as a teacher, a music teacher, how does all this musical knowledge translate when you're in front of a class of musically interested young people?
My whole ethos in teaching is to try and get people to do what they like. Just to experiment. And there is no wrong notes. There are notes that play that and that it does that, play that and that it does that. But you need to decide whether you like the sound of that or that. And either of them are fine if that's what you're after. If you want to make something very commercial, then you're in restricted boxes. If you want to go out, and I think what's hard to do, and certain people can, is make something that's unusual and commercial. That's actually very difficult. And XTC managed that. That's very difficult.
Yeah. I have a friend who is a musician and is a community musician, and in this sort of situation, he will quite commonly write an improvised song with the audience. And so what he'll do is he'll get the audience to shout out 3 chords, and somebody else to shout out a time signature, and then somebody to give a title, and then there'll be a whiteboard, and they'll write the song together. But his line is that it doesn't matter if those 3 chords are not D, E, and G. Something will happen when you put them together.
You can put anything next to anything, and it's somehow, if you move it around enough, that's all right. Mm-hmm. That's all right.
Mm-hmm. And when you're teaching, does your teaching feed back into your own musical, artistic practice?
Because the beauty of it is every year there'll be a group of kids into whatever, the trap, dubstep, drum and bass. There's one of them at the back over there somewhere doing the sound. Each year they'll say, how do you do this? I have absolutely no idea. So I then have to go and research all these different new styles. And then I can take it, that's a really good trick I can take into my own stuff. So it keeps me updated, stops me getting too old.
Yeah, that must be fantastic.
It's great.
And also not to feel as though you're just doing a pastiche or doing it on the...
No, you can't try to be 16, but you can take bits of it, little bits. So like, oh, that's a nice sound. That's good.
And do your students excite you artistically? Because I'm kind of thinking there's just so much rock and roll, to use that whole genre, that exists now. The opportunity and the way to be as creative as you're talking about, saying there are no wrong answers. It might be a bit oppressive for people to think, oh, that there are surely all of these right answers.
But I think when you're 16, you don't care about that.
You don't care about
You just want to make something that makes you go. It's later on, I think, when you realise, oh, you hit a brick wall, someone else is already doing it. That's when you've got to think, oh, we've got to do something different now. We've got to. But first, you just want to make a racket. There seems to be a never-ending supply of 16-year-old kids who want to make a racket, which is fantastic. That's what it should be.
Yeah, long live that.
Long live the racket.
Yeah. And then you can then try and polish that or
yeah,
push
but
it
I don't think you should polish it too much. They can't. Yeah, to be my age and tell them how to do it. I don't think. Like, give them possibilities, then let them. I might not like it, but they've got to do it. They've got to do it themselves.
Yeah. And that thing about surprise, it's something that Dave Gregory often says about working with Andy Partridge, is that Andy goes in places that, you know, the correct way tells you not to go. And I suspect from the way you were talking about Jen Olive, she does as well. You know, she breaks the rules, or he breaks the rules, maybe because he doesn't know what the rules are, or just that's the natural way of thinking.
Yeah, I think both of them kind of... they really understand music on a very, very deep level, but from only hearing it, not from actually saying that's that kind of chord. So it's very complex, and the layers are very deep. But it's not learnt from a book. It's learnt from listening and experimenting. Andy knows that goes with that, and he'll have a name for it. We don't necessarily know that's augmented, so it's just. But he will know that colour. I think Andy thinks like an artist. He knows that. He knows that will create that colour. It's more like that, I think.
Yeah. And has that expanded your way of thinking about music, your sense of what's possible?
Yeah, I think one of the things that I do, and I've learned this from Andy, is to think of music. So on Worse on the Way, every track's in a place. So on Gonwards, so Worse on the Way, it's set in a Russian factory. All the tracks are set in an environment, and then you're trying to create the sounds to make the environment. So any sound can go with that. If you just think, oh, someone's walked on the stage now dressed as a cowboy, that's fine. In the Clubmen, there's a bit in the Clubmen where it's set on in my head. It's set on an aeroplane. So we have scenes for everything where things occur.
And you also referred to the set of Monstrance. It feels like it's a very theatrical thing, the way that you're thinking, or
yes.
The group of you are thinking.
Yeah, so Monstrance wasn't, because that was just. But Gonwards is a theatre.
Yeah.
I think they're all set in a different place, different characters, and even different people. Musically, anyway, different people coming on.
Yeah,
on the stage,
and that's definitely reflected in the packaging of it and the theatricality.
I think it fits. Yeah,
of the visual images and all that sort of Russian typeface that's being used. Do you know Andrew Swainson well?
Yes, I've only met him a few times. I think he's fantastic. Andrew did an unbelievably brilliant video for Oh Lovely Cosmonaut off Monstrance. I think kind of got lost in the mist of time, but it was only on Vimeo. I don't know if he's here, Andrew, but. If he's still got it, it's such a great video he made for that.
And that reminds me, going back to Gonwards, certainly on the box set collection, there are 5 or 6 videos that were made by art students in response to the songs as well.
Yes, Peter's students. Yeah, and then me and Andy made a load of videos as well to back it up. Yeah, we just kept going with it. But yeah, I think Peter was teaching. I had been in Switzerland or something. He was teaching.
That's right. Yeah.
And he got a load of students to make animation for the tracks.
Do you think in those visual terms when you're doing music? That sort of synesthesia sort of thing.
Yeah. No, I don't. I don't think in colours. I think in places. Where is it? What's happening? What's that? What's the guitarist look like? Has he got a cowboy hat on and cowboy boots? Or is he playing it behind his head? Or yeah, more like that. The people.
And is it specific or is it sort of dreamlike? Is it, if you tried to put it into words, would it make sense, or is it something a bit more instinctive?
I don't know. We just talk about it. So so it has the right impact. Then there's on Worse on the Way. There's a bit at the end of that, and Frank was playing saxophone, and we said, Frank, can you do a saxophone solo? And he was doing it. And he's a brilliant kind of bluesy jazz saxophone. that's not quite right. And so Andy said, can you play it as if you're in Russia, you're out in the snow, your donkey has just died and rolled over, and you're standing there with absolutely no hope. And he did this amazingly fantastic, desperately sad solo that made us laugh. So it's that kind of thing.
That's beautiful. That's really beautiful, yeah.
Yeah, but the donkey is actually frozen solid.
Yeah. If you think about all the other musicians you've worked with, whether as students or in other capacities, how common is that? How common is to use that sort of rich visual language amongst musicians?
Yeah, that's quite rare, I think. Most people are, it's very rare. Most people are thinking of the words or the music or the chords, but it's like another layer up, I think, another level up. And particularly when you can find that language that can be communicated from one musician to another, or from a musician to a producer saying, this is what I'm trying to get, it achieves things, doesn't it? Well, I think it's clear, if you can both get it, you know what we're trying to get. It either works or it doesn't in that scenario.
Yeah.
It makes it achievable.
I think we're nearing the end of our time, which is a shame because we're having such a good chat. But Stu, are you going to be around?
Yeah, I'll stay around, yeah.
And if you're, I know because I spoke to the Burning Shed people before, if you're willing to sign any Gonwards LPs or anything else.
Or 3 Clubmen.
Or 3 Clubmen, grab him. This is what he looks
like. Happy to do
that. Could we have a very, very, very big round of applause for Stu Rowe? Thank you.
What do you call that noise?
Thanks to Stu Rowe for being such a great interviewee, and of course to all the organisers of the 2025 XTC Fan Festival for their fantastic work. Everybody thought it was a most wonderful experience. Thanks too to Callum Wilson and Nick Lacey for providing this episode's music, and thank you to the many generous podcast supporters on Patreon, who include the following knights in shining karma: Terry Arnett, Kevin Burt, Lorenzo Ciacci, Cale Corbett, Liam Duggan, Jamie Dunn, Alison Eales, Jeff Farris, Mike Grafe, Robert Graham, Camille Henry, Stephen Hope, Alan Hughes, Rick James, Peter Kitchen, Marek Kraus, Jesper Kumberg, Robert Lawlaw, Adrian Loon, Liz Lynch, Murray Meikle, Youssef Murrah, Max Nyaho, Amy Parkinson, Tim Parsons, Gail Ramage, Mark Reed, James Reimer, Jaime Rostamora, Michael Sutcliffe, Steve Swift, Mark Thomas, Nigel Waller, John Weddermeyer, Lucy Verbitsky, and Martin Whitley. That is all for now, but there'll be more Fan Festival interview material coming up in future episodes, so I'll see you back then. Bye.